kind of talking about why I made the choice to exclusively sell to restaurants. Probably the driving factor was that I've worked in the food and beverage industry for, I guess, nearly a decade before I started farming. So I already had a lot of personal relationships with chefs and owners of restaurants in town. Also, because of that experience in restaurants, I felt pretty dialed into the food trends that were occurring in restaurants and felt like I could really capitalize on knowing what to grow that would be most interesting to those chefs. I also really feel like part of what is exciting to me in farming is emphasizing the story of food, and I can really relate to chefs about that. You know, when they're putting a plate down in front of someone, they want to tell that story too, you know, and so a lot of what I'm doing is kind of using some like non-traditional seed suppliers, kind of doing some more like heirloom, open pollinated stuff, just to kind of get more of a story for those restaurants. I also recognized that I was, you know, a newcomer to the local small food movement. And so I knew that restaurants already had some of their local suppliers already in line. And so I really wanted to kind of fill in the gaps and do a lot of experimentation and allow for other people to grow the staple crops while I would do some of kind of more the non-traditional varieties. It's just me up here on the farm. I don't have any farm help. So, you know, kind of just being able to target into restaurants, doing really specific crops was something that I felt like was more manageable. I also, you know, Mark's going to talk about CSAs in a little bit. I find CSAs a little daunting. Things aren't going well on your farm, drought or pests or whatever the case may be. You owe it to your CSA members to still deliver product for them each week. And so just dealing with restaurants, it was a little easier for me to navigate those things that might occur, especially as I was just getting started on my farm. I love the idea of farmers markets, but I personally don't like selling at them. You know, if I'm going to spend a 12-hour day, especially one that starts at 3 or 4 in the morning on my farm, I would rather be working on the farm and tending to the vegetables than standing at a market. So that just really wasn't for me. So really all of those things kind of led me to wanting to focus on restaurants. As I'm doing that, there are a few things that I need to focus on that might be a little different if I was selling at farmers markets or to a CSA. First thing is that I really focus on extending my harvest windows. You know, a lot of chefs in town, while they might change their menus, they're probably doing it seasonally. Most of our chefs are not doing daily menu changes. So the longer that I can get them the produce that they need for their menu, the better that is for me and for them. I also, you know, really think it's important that people understand the true cost of food. So I tend to have pretty high prices for a lot of my crops, which sometimes makes it a little harder to navigate getting sales through the door. But the chefs that I work with really understand that we have undervalued food in this country for a long time. And so they also understand why my prices are higher. It does mean that, you know, sometimes the economic challenges don't allow them to buy as much from me, but I still hold pretty strongly to that. I also, you know, as I mentioned earlier, just try to give them as many unique offerings as possible. When working with restaurants and talking about the story that they like to convey, a lot of the times they want to be able to put the entire vegetable on the plate to really highlight it. Like if you think about eggplant, you know, the way that you would typically cook it at home, you would chop it up, put it into your meal. A thing that a chef might be wanting to do is use a much smaller variety of eggplant, just slice it in half and present it that way. You know, and so just kind of thinking about those sorts of things when dealing with chefs. You know, kind of the joke is that my farm could be called Tiny Things Farm instead of its actual name, just because I really do try and focus on those sorts of elements for the chef. a last priority is just making the farm sustainable in all sorts of ways, but also for me and my work on it, trying to kind of create that balance between work and life, which is hard for farmers to do.